Hello gentle listeners, and welcome back to episode 8 of Whispers of the Past. I'm your host, Josh, and today we're setting sail into one of the most haunting maritime legends ever told, the tale of the Flying Dutchman. Our journey begins in the 17th century, a time when the world's oceans were as mysterious as they were dangerous. This was an era of great exploration, where brave sailors ventured into the unknown, guided only by the stars and their wits. But amidst the ventures and discoveries, there were stories much darker whispered across the decks, stories of ghost ships doomed to sail the seas for all eternity. The most famous of these ghost ships? The Flying Dutchman. The legend of the Flying Dutchman is said to originate in the stormy waters at the southern tip of Africa in the Cape of Good Hope. This is a treacherous stretch of sea, notorious for its violent tempests and unpredictable currents, which has led to it being a graveyard for countless ships and sailors. It was during this perilous voyage that the story of the Flying Dutchman first took root in maritime lore. According to the tale, a Dutch captain named Hendrik van der Decken was leading his vessel through these tumultuous waters. Now, Van der Decken was no ordinary seafarer. He was renowned for his daring exploits and unmatched skill on the high seas. His ship, a sleek and sturdy vessel, had weathered many a storm under his command. But the Cape of Good Hope presented a challenge unlike any he had faced before. The storm that besieged Van der Decken's ship was particularly vicious. The wind howled with a malevolent force, and the waves surged like mountains of fury, crashing against the hull with relentless aggression. The dark skies were illuminated by flashes of lightning, revealing a scene of apocalyptic chaos. Despite the ship's formidable design and Van der Decken's experience, the storm was unrelenting, and the crew began to fear for their lives. As the tempest grew fiercer, the crew's anxieties turned into outright terror. They beseeched their captain to seek refuge, to turn back and find shelter until the storm passed. They begged him to reconsider, their voices filled with desperation. But Van der Decken, driven by an insatiable desire to conquer the unyielding waters and a profound sense of pride, refused to yield. His pride was his compass, guiding him through the maelstrom with a determination that bordered on madness. In a moment of hubristic defiance, Van der Decken made a fatal proclamation. He swore that he would round the Cape, no matter the cost, even if it meant sailing until Judgment Day itself. His declaration was a blasphemous challenge to the natural order, a refusal to bow to the forces that governed the seas. It was this brazen challenge that would seal his fate, and the fate of his ship. The legend holds that as Van der Decken uttered his defiant vow, the skies darkened further, and a strange, foreboding silence fell over the ship. The storm seemed to pause, as if the heavens were deliberating on the captain's audacity. Then, with a deafening roar, the storm surged once more. But now it was accompanied by a supernatural force. The ship and its crew were engulfed in a ghostly fog, the air thick with an otherworldly chill. It was in this moment that Van der Decken's defiance was met with divine retribution. The curse that was cast upon him and his ship was no ordinary one. The heavens, in their anger, condemned Van der Decken and his vessel to sail the oceans for all eternity. The curse ensured that they would never find a port, never rest, and never know peace. The ship was doomed to wander the seas, a spectral apparition eternally caught in the storm it had once defied. From that day onward, the Flying Dutchman became a ghostly beacon of Van der Decken's pride and folly. Sailors who encountered it spoke of a ship that was shrouded in a mysterious, eerie glow, with its spectral crew still visible on the deck through the ever-present mist. These sightings were always accompanied by a sense of dread, as if the appearance of the Flying Dutchman was an omen of impending doom. The ship, forever cursed, served as a haunting reminder of the consequences of challenging the forces of nature and the divine. But what makes the story of the Flying Dutchman so enduring? Over the centuries, sailors have reported sightings of this ghost ship. It always appears in the distance, and is normally bathed in an eerie, otherworldly glow, surrounded by mist. It's said that to see the Flying Dutchman is a bad omen, one that foretells disaster, shipwreck, or death. One of the most famous accounts of the sighting comes from 1881, when Prince George of Wales, who would later become King George V, allegedly saw the ghost ship while sailing off the coast of Australia. According to his diary, the Flying Dutchman appeared in a glowing red light, and the lookout who first spotted it fell to his death shortly after. The prince himself, shaken by the encounter, reported the sighting to his superiors, but refused to speak further of it, adding an air of mystery to an already chilling legend. But is there any truth to these stories? Some say the legend could be based on real events: a ship lost to a storm, a captain who refused to turn back, or perhaps even a mirage seen by weary sailors. Others believe the Flying Dutchman represents something more, a symbol of eternal damnation. A cautionary tale about the dangers of defying the forces of nature and fate. The Cape of Good Hope, where the Flying Dutchman is often said to have been doomed, is notorious for its treacherous waters, violent storms, unpredictable currents, and jagged rocks, and it has claimed countless other ships throughout history. Though it's easy to see how a place like this could become the setting for such a chilling legend. For sailors facing the dangers of the sea, the idea of a cursed ship endlessly battling the elements might have seemed all too plausible. In some versions of the story, the crew of the Flying Dutchman are said to be dead, their skeletal remains manning the ship as it drifts through the mist. In others, they are very much alive, but cursed to eternal servitude under their captain's tyrannical command. This distinction raises interesting questions. Is the Dutchman's fate one of death or of a living nightmare, where the crew is trapped in a limbo, unable to escape their watery prison? The legend takes on a new layer when you consider the psychological impact on those who believe in its truth. Imagine being a sailor who encounters this spectral ship, seeing the ghostly figures moving about the deck, their hollow eyes fixed on the eternity of punishment. The fear of being confronted by such a sight would be a profound test of one's sanity, pushing the boundaries of human endurance and belief. What makes the legend even more intriguing is how it has been adapted and retold across different cultures. The Flying Dutchman isn't just a tale confined to one country's folklore. Variations of this ghost ship can be found in British, American, and even Scandinavian folklore, each version adding its own local flavour. But the core of the story remains the same: a ship condemned to sail forever, never to find rest. The Flying Dutchman has also found its way into literature and opera, most notably in Richard Wagner's famous opera, The Flying Dutchman, where the story is given a romantic twist. In Wagner's version, the Dutchman can only be released from his curse by the love of a faithful woman. This reinterpretation adds layers of tragedy and hope to the original tale, showing just how much myths can evolve to reflect different aspects of the human experience. Beyond its place in folklore, the Flying Dutchman can be seen as a metaphor for the human condition. The ship's endless journey mirrors our own search for meaning, battling the storms of life, haunted by our past mistakes. It's a reminder of the consequences of hubris, of the dangers of defying forces beyond our control, whether they be nature, fate, or our own inner demons. And what of the sightings? Could they simply be the product of an overactive imagination, or a trick of light on the ocean's surface? Some scientists suggest that these ghostly apparitions could be a form of mirage known as a fata morgana, where light bends over the horizon, creating the illusion of a ship floating in the sky. It's a plausible explanation, but it doesn't diminish the eerie feelings sailors must experience when they think they are gazing upon a cursed vessel. As we continue to explore the oceans, both literally and metaphorically, the legend of the Flying Dutchman endures. It serves as a reminder of the mysteries that still elude us, the dark corners of the world and the mind that we have yet to fully understand. The Dutchman may never reach port, but its story has certainly found a home in our collective imagination, sailing on through the ages. But who exactly was Captain Hendrik van der Decken, the man whose defiance supposedly led to this eternal curse? Some stories describe him as a ruthless and fearless captain, a man who had seen countless storms and survived many battles. His crew respected and feared him in equal measure. In these tales, Van der Decken wasn't just any captain. He was a man who challenged the very elements, a figure larger than life, whose hubris was his downfall. Other versions of the story paint Van der Decken as a man driven to madness by the relentless dangers of the sea. It's said that as his ship approached the Cape of Good Hope, a storm unlike any he had ever encountered before bore down on them. The winds howled, the seas roared, and the crew begged him to seek shelter. But Van der Decken, perhaps already teetering on the edge of sanity, cursed the heavens, swearing that he would make the passage no matter the cost. In that moment, the legend says, he sealed his fate and that of his ship. But what could drive a man to such extremes? Was it pride, desperation, or perhaps the weight of countless voyages, where each new storm, each near miss with death, chipped away at his resolve, until all that remained was a man determined to defy even the gods themselves? It's in these darker moments that the legend of the Flying Dutchman touches on a universal theme, the struggle against forces greater than ourselves, and the price we pay when we refuse to yield. Imagine, if you will, being one of Van der Decken's crew. You've seen your captain lead you through countless dangers. But now, as the storm rages and the ship creaks and groans under the strain, you begin to wonder if he has lost his mind. The air is thick with fear, and yet your captain stands defiant at the helm, eyes blazing with determination, or madness. When he shouts into the storm, cursing the very elements, you know something has shifted. It's no longer just a battle against the sea. You feel it in your bones. Something darker, more sinister, has taken a hold. And then, the skies darken further. The winds howl with a ferocity that seems almost unnatural, and you see it, the moment when the curse is laid. Perhaps it's a voice on the wind, or a shadow that moves against the storm. Perhaps it's just a feeling, a coldness that seeps into your very soul. But you know, in that instant, that the ship and everyone aboard it is doomed. The ship doesn't just battle the storm, it battles fate itself, and it's a battle you cannot win. For centuries, the story of the Flying Dutchman has been a cautionary tale for sailors. It's a reminder that the sea, for all its beauty, is a force of nature that demands respect. Those who challenge it, who believe they can conquer it through sheer will, may find themselves facing a fate far worse than death. The legend teaches humility, the understanding that some forces are beyond our control, no matter how skilled or determined we might be. Interestingly, the Flying Dutchman isn't the only ghost ship in maritime lore. Across the world, sailors have told stories of phantom ships, vessels that appear out of nowhere, often in the midst of storms, only to vanish as quickly as they appeared. From the Mary Celeste to the Calicu of Chilean folklore. These stories share a common thread. They reflect the fear of the unknown, the mysteries that lurk beneath the ocean's surface, and the thin line between the living and the dead. But while many ghost ships are said to be abandoned, their crews vanished without a trace. The Flying Dutchman is unique in that its crew is still aboard, cursed, perhaps undead, but always present. This adds a layer of horror to the story. It's not just the ship that's doomed, it's the souls of those aboard, trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment. In this way, The Flying Dutchman becomes a story not just of a cursed ship, but of cursed men, bound to the fate by the actions of their captain. The legend also raises questions about the nature of curses and the limits of human endurance. Can a curse be so powerful that it transcends the physical realm and binds souls to a supernatural fate? Is there a point where human defiance becomes so profound that it invites otherworldly retribution? The Flying Dutchman invites us to ponder these deep and unsettling questions, challenging our understanding of fate and punishment. As we listen to these tales, it's worth considering what they say about the human experience. The sea has always been a metaphor for life itself, vast, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. The Flying Dutchman in this light can be seen as a symbol of the dangers of losing our way, of becoming so consumed by our own goals or obsessions that we lose sight of what truly matters. And in doing so, we risk not just our own destruction, the doom of those who follow us. In the end, the legend of the Flying Dutchman is as much about human condition as it is about the supernatural. It's a story that has resonated for centuries. Not because of its ghostly elements, but because it touches on something deep within us all. The fear of being lost, of being cursed by our own actions, and of the eternal consequences that might follow. It's a reminder that the stories we tell are not just about the past, but about the present, and the future, and the choices we make. Thank you for joining me on this voyage into the unknown. If you enjoyed today's episode of Whispers of the Past, share it with your friends and don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or send me a review to whispersofthepastreviews@gmail.com. If you have any stories you'd like to hear in particular, then you can also send them there. Until next time, I'm Josh, reminding you to keep your eyes on the horizon and be aware of what might be sailing just beyond it.